Hey everyone, ready for a deep dive into something pretty interesting? Today we're looking into the AI race and specifically a new development that's got a lot of folks talking.
Yeah, this is a big one.
Yeah, it is a big one. A Chinese AI company called DeepSeek.
DeepSeek, yeah.
They're really making some moves, and it's got some people wondering if they're catching up to the U.S. companies.
Well, it's fascinating because this goes way beyond just the tech world, right? We're
Right.
talking about, national security, global competition.
It's a big deal.
Yeah,
The whole thing.
for sure. And to get a clear picture, we've got some pretty insightful sources we're going to be diving into today.
Oh yeah, some good stuff.
We've got analysis from Anthropic's CEO, Dario Amodei. We've got social media reactions, and even a critique that really digs into some of the complexities that a lot of the initial analysis missed.
Yeah, I think it's really valuable to have that kind of deeper dive beyond the headlines
Well, absolutely.
to really understand what's going on here. Yeah, so think of this as our mission today is to figure out, is DeepSeek really a game changer?
Right.
What does this mean for the future of AI? And are those export controls that we have on AI chips to China, are they working or are they even necessary?
And that's a huge question, right? Like, is this actually an effective strategy?
We're going to find out. There's definitely more to this than meets the eye, so let's jump right in.
Let's do it.
So Dario Amodei,
Yeah.
he acknowledges that DeepSeek has achieved some pretty impressive things,
Yeah.
but he kind of suggests that their success is more about the fact that AI development in general is becoming cheaper,
Right.
not necessarily that they've had some, mind-blowing breakthrough.
Yeah, he's basing a lot of his analysis on this idea of like a predictable scaling curve in AI development.
Okay.
And that's where things start to get really interesting.
Okay, so is Amodei contradicting himself here?
Potentially.
Because he's downplaying DeepSeek's threat while at the same time he is pushing for these tighter export controls.
Right.
So could this be more about protecting Anthropic, his company,
Yeah.
than national security?
That's a really good point. It does seem like there is a little bit of a disconnect there.
Yeah.
Right. Like he's kind of minimizing DeepSeek's achievements at the same time that he's advocating for these really strong measures to contain them.
Right.
And, as the CEO of Anthropic, it's hard to ignore the fact that he has this, vested interest in limiting competition.
Right.
Especially from, open source AI projects, which
Yeah.
could, potentially undercut his company's business model.
Exactly. And we see that point being brought up by a few people on social media as well.
Yeah.
Arnaud Bertrand is one.
Mm-hmm.
They're questioning if Amodei's vision for the future of AI, where we have, just a few U.S. companies controlling the most advanced models, if that might actually stifle innovation and limit access for others.
Yeah. It's a really important question to consider, right? Because if we end up in a situation where only a handful of companies have control over this incredibly powerful technology,
Right.
what does that mean for the rest of us?
Yeah.
What does that mean for, people in other countries, for researchers who are trying to, push the boundaries of AI?
Right, exactly. And this gets to the heart of some of the broader critiques of Amodei's analysis.
Yeah, for sure.
So, for example, this focus on scaling laws.
Yeah,
That might be an oversimplification.
I think so. I mean, of course, bigger models and more data generally lead to better performance.
Sure.
But it's not the whole story.
Yeah.
What about, algorithmic innovation? What about those sort of aha moments,
Right.
those breakthroughs that completely change the game?
Yeah, like when AlphaGo Zero learned to play Go at a superhuman level
Yeah.
without any human data, just by playing against itself.
That was a huge deal.
That was a major shift.
Absolutely. I mean, that was a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
A moment where the entire approach to AI development changed.
Yeah.
We went from, feeding models massive amounts of data to just letting them learn through self-play.
Yep.
And the results were, astonishing.
They were. So Amodei's framework, scaling laws, shifting the paradigm.
Right.
It's helpful.
Yeah, it's a useful way to think about things.
But it can't fully account for these unpredictable leaps in AI capabilities.
Exactly. You can't predict everything right.
Right.
There are always going to be these surprises, these moments where our understanding of what's possible just completely changes.
So you're saying that Amodei's three dynamics, while they're helpful, they might be overlooking those black swan events in AI development?
Yeah, I think that's a real risk.
Those moments that completely rewrite what we think is possible.
Right. And I mean, you brought up a great example with AlphaGo Zero.
Yeah.
That was a perfect example of a paradigm shift.
Yeah.
A moment where, the fundamental assumptions about how to build AI were just totally overturned.
Yeah.
And I think, that kind of thing can happen again.
Yeah. Which makes me think, could Amadeus focus on these scaling laws? Could it be blinding him to some other really crucial factors in AI development?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really important question
Yeah.
because while he does acknowledge, the potential for paradigm shifts,
Yeah.
it seems like he's kind of downplaying their significance
Yeah.
compared to the predictable scaling of, existing models.
Okay.
But history shows us, time and time again, that technological progress is not always linear.
It's not always a straight line.
It's messy, it's unpredictable.
DeepSeek's success actually reinforces the need for export controls
Right.
because it shows that China is a serious competitor.
Right. He's basically saying, like, they're catching up, we need to do something.
Yeah, he estimates that by 2026 or 2027, AI could reach human-level intelligence.
Wow.
And having access to millions of chips
Yeah.
will be crucial for any country that wants to lead in this field.
So it's all about the hardware.
Yeah, so his argument really hinges on the idea that China, if they get access to more advanced chips, they could very quickly catch up to the U.S. in AI development.
Right.
And it's this view that basically pits the U.S. and China in this head-to-head race,
Yeah.
with the outcome depending on who controls the most powerful AI.
It's kind of a scary thought, right?
It is a scary thought, yeah.
Like this AI arms race.
Yeah, he even paints this really stark picture, doesn't he?
He does.
Either a bipolar world where both the U.S. and China have powerful AI, or a unipolar world dominated by the U.S.
Right, like those are the only two options.
Yeah.
And he seems to believe that export controls are the key to ensuring that, the U.S. comes out on top.
Yeah.
But, is that really the only possible outcome?
Right.
Could there be other paths forward?
This idea of a bipolar versus unipolar AI world, that Amodei presents, does it even take into account the possibility of a more multipolar world?
Right.
One where, multiple countries or even organizations have significant AI capabilities?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, Amodei's analysis seems to kind of assume that AI leadership is going to be concentrated in the hands of, just a few powerful nations.
Right.
But what if AI development becomes more decentralized?
Yeah.
What if we see a rise in open source AI projects that empower a much wider range of actors?
Yeah, that brings to mind this article that we have here that argues that Amodei is overlooking the potential of open source AI. It uses examples like Linux and Android,
Yeah.
open source software that's had a huge impact on the tech world,
For sure.
to illustrate how a more open approach to AI could foster innovation and democratize access to this technology.
It's an interesting point, right?
Sure.
Because if AI becomes more accessible, wouldn't that potentially accelerate progress, across the board?
Yeah.
Benefiting everyone.
Right.
Open source models, they're freely available for anyone to use, modify, distribute.
Right.
That could lead to a much more collaborative
Yeah.
and less competitive environment for AI development.
But wouldn't that increase the risk of dangerous AI falling into the wrong hands?
That's a valid concern for sure. But the article argues that the benefits of open source AI outweigh the risks.
Okay.
And one of the main reasons for that is transparency,
Okay.
right? With open source models, the code is out in the open for everyone to see,
Yeah.
to scrutinize,
Right.
which could lead to faster identification and mitigation of potential risks.
So instead of just a few companies controlling the development of AI behind closed doors,
Right.
we could have this global community of researchers, developers,
Yeah.
even everyday citizens contributing to its progress and ensuring its safety.
Exactly. And, that goes back to this idea of a multipolar AI world.
Yeah.
Open source AI could really empower a much wider range of actors,
Right.
making it much more difficult for any single country or organization to dominate the field.
Which then makes me wonder if Amodei's push for these strict export controls might actually be counterproductive.
Yeah, I mean, there's a strong argument to be made for that.
Yeah.
Because by limiting access to advanced chips, the U.S. could inadvertently be incentivizing China to become more self-reliant in chip manufacturing,
Right.
which could potentially accelerate their progress in the long run.
Right.
And, we've seen this happen before,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Cutting-edge technology often emerges from these unexpected places.
Yeah.
You try to control the flow of technology too tightly.
Right.
You could end up stifling innovation and creating all sorts of unforeseen consequences.
Okay, so we've talked about open source AI. We've talked about the possibility of a multipolar world, but there's another critique of Imaday's analysis that I want to touch on.
Okay.
And that's this idea that having the best AI model automatically translates into strategic advantage.
Right.
This article we have here argues that military power is determined by a lot more than just having a slightly better language model.
Right. It's not just about having the shiniest toy. Right.
Exactly.
There are so many other factors at play.
Like saying, the country with the fastest cars wins every race.
Exactly.
There are other things, the skill of the driver, the condition of the track, the strategy involved.
Right, exactly. And in the context of, military power, you have things like sensor integration,
Yeah.
autonomous systems,
Data availability,
military doctors,
Yeah.
all these things play a huge role.
Right.
Having a, slightly more advanced language model isn't going to automatically guarantee you victory on the battlefield.
The article even draws a parallel to nuclear weapons during the Cold War. Just having a larger nuclear arsenal didn't mean automatic victory.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Other factors like delivery systems, intelligence gathering,
Yeah.
strategic decision-making, those were just as important.
All right.
And I think the same logic applies to AI.
Okay.
It's a powerful tool, no doubt,
Yeah.
but it's not a magic bullet that renders all other factors irrelevant.
So this brings us back to DeepSeek. Even if their models are, for the moment, slightly behind those of leading U.S. companies, does that really mean they pose no threat?
Yeah, that's where things get a little bit nuanced. Right?
Yeah.
Because, on the one hand, Amaday is downplaying DeepSeek's achievements.
Right.
But on the other hand, he's arguing for these really strong measures to contain them.
Right.
So it's kind of like he's trying to have it both ways.
But if we consider the broader context,
Yeah.
the potential for paradigm shifts,
Right.
the importance of factors beyond just raw model performance, and this possibility of a multipolar AI landscape, maybe Amaday's concerns about DeepSeek are a little overblown.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. I mean,
Yeah.
his analysis seems to be focused on a very narrow slice of the AI landscape.
Yeah.
He's kind of overlooking some really crucial aspects of, its development
Yeah.
and its implications for, global power dynamics.
Right.
He's really fixated on this particular vision of the future, one where the U.S. maintains its dominance by controlling access to the most advanced technology.
Right.
But what if that vision is based on flawed assumptions?
Which leads us to a really important question for you, the listener. If AI development isn't as predictable as Amadei suggests, and if there are multiple paths to AI leadership, how should we approach its governance and regulation?
Yeah, that's the big question, right?
Should we prioritize open collaboration or national competition?
I mean, those are two very different models.
They are. And what does this mean for you in your own work and life?
Because this is where things get really interesting, right?
Yeah.
The future of AI, it's not just being decided in, boardrooms and government offices.
Right.
It's being shaped by the choices that individuals and communities make every single day.
So let's bring this back to you, the listener.
Yeah.
Maybe you're a researcher who could benefit from access to open source AI models.
Right.
Maybe you're in an industry that's about to be completely transformed by AI, and you're trying to figure out how to prepare. Or maybe you're just someone who's fascinated by AI and wants to understand how it's going to change the world.
I mean, I think that's a lot of people these days, right?
Yeah, I think so too.
It's such a powerful technology.
Yeah.
It's hard not to be curious about it.
So wherever you stand, it's really crucial to engage with these issues, to ask questions and to make informed decisions about how this technology is developed and deployed.
Because ultimately, the choices we make today will determine the kind of AI-powered future we create.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
We have.
From scaling laws and paradigm shifts to export controls and the potential of open source AI.
It's a lot to think about.
It is a lot to think about.
Yeah.
And it's clear that this DeepSeek situation has really stirred things up.
Oh, yeah.
And it's challenged some of the traditional assumptions about technological progress.
I think that's one of the most interesting things about this whole story, right?
Yeah.
It's forcing us to rethink, some of our fundamental ideas about how technology develops and how it impacts the world.
And what stands out to me is how this really highlights the importance of critical thinking.
For sure.
We can't just accept, the pronouncements of industry leaders or government officials at face value.
Right.
We need to dig deeper.
Yeah, we need to look at the evidence.
Yeah.
We need to consider alternative perspectives.
And ask tough questions.
Exactly.
Like, is Amodi's vision of this U.S.-dominated AI future, is that really the best outcome for the world?
Right. Is that the future we want?
Does his focus on scaling laws and export controls, does that blind him to other possibilities, like the transformative potential of open source AI or the benefits of international collaboration?
I mean, those are questions that I think we all need to be grappling with right now.
Yeah, I agree.
Because there are no easy answers.
No,
This isn't just a technological challenge.
Yeah.
It's a societal one.
it is.
It's about deciding what kind of future we want to create with AI and who gets to shape that future.
So here's a final thought-provoking question for you to consider.
Okay.
If AI development doesn't follow this predictable scaling curve,
Right.
and if factors beyond just raw model performance determine strategic advantage, what does that mean for the future of AI?
Yeah, what does that mean for all of us?
Do we embrace a more open and collaborative approach?
Mm-hmm.
Or do we continue down this path of, a zero-sum competition?
I mean, those are the stakes.
Yeah.
That's what we're facing right now.
Ultimately, the answer is up to all of us.
It's a future we all have a stake in shaping.
It is.
So thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
And keep those questions coming.